Hi, my name is Dan, and we're going to be learning how to set up and use the debugger in CodeBlocks. First, what is a debugger? A debugger is a tool that allows us to take a look inside programs while they execute. This can be invaluable in finding logical errors, as well as help you understand how the computer is actually running the code that you write. First things first, let's set it up. There's only one step, which is designating the path to the debugger program. In our case, it's called gdb.exe. To do this, we go to Settings, Debugger, and Default. Here, in the executable path box, we copy and paste the path of gdb.exe. If you use the default installation settings, that's going to be something like this path here. All we're looking for is the location of gdb.exe on your computer, which again, by default should be this, but if you have a previous MinGW installation, like myself, it could be something like this. Once you pasted it in, hit OK, and we're ready to start debugging. To run your code in the debugger, you'll hit this red play button. But first, we must set what's called a breakpoint. A breakpoint indicates where your debugger will halt your running code, so you can take a look at the values of variables or whether or not a branch of code is getting run. To set one, simply click on the right side of any line number like so, and you should see a red circle appear. This indicates the breakpoint has been set, and we can set as many as we want. The important thing to remember is the code will stop executing at any breakpoint it hits, and setting these is a key way for you to get to particular parts of your program that you want to investigate. To demonstrate the use of breakpoints, I've written some code here that asks the user two questions, and when the user answers, responds back in different ways. I'm going to set my breakpoints at lines 12, 16, and 26. What this means is that when the debugger gets to any of these lines, it will stop before executing them. Let's see this in action. When I hit the red play button, move my console over, we see that we've stopped at line 12. We know we've stopped because we see this little yellow triangle that indicates that we are about to execute line 12. Now I hit this button called Next Line. We execute line 12 and move on to 13. If I hit this again, line 13 will run, and now we're ready to take in a number. I'm going to go ahead and hit continue, which will let the code execute as normal, but as you can tell, the next thing we hit is a breakpoint. So now we're stopped at line 16. What this means is that when I hit next line, we're going to assess whether or not number is equal to 37. So because it wasn't, we don't enter the block and go next to the else if. Because it's also not greater than 37, we go into this else block where this line 23 is run. When hit next line again, we end up at 26. This piece of code takes a number input in line 14 and adds 5 to it. This is a great line to demonstrate another one of the great functions of the debugger, which is the watch window. The watch window, located over here, or at least that's where I've put it, shows us the values of particular variables in our code. This local section will show all of our local variables. To get this window, you go to Debug, Debugging Windows, and click Watches. And this is one of the greatest features of the debugger because it'll show us the changing variables of our code. So if we were to hit next line, we can see that the number has increased from 30 to 35. If we want to keep running our code normally, we again hit debug. Type in a color, and our code will finish and close out. Unfortunately, it won't stay open, so you might want to set a breakpoint at the very end to prevent that from happening, but that's the gist of how we use next line. Now we're going to go over something a little bit more advanced. In upcoming modules, we're going to learn about writing functions. Functions are pieces of code that we can call again and again to do a particular job for us. I've written a function here called isPurple that takes in a string and returns true if that string is the word purple. I call it here on line 31. And let's see what happens if I execute the code with the debugger. Stop again at the breakpoint on 12, going to continue, type in a number, and we hit that breakpoint at 26 again. I'm going to start stepping through. So if I hit next line and next line, it's going to ask for my favorite color, and I'm going to try to type that out, but I have to hit next line again on line 29 There we go. Now we're on line 31 where it's going to call my function. If I just hit next line, you'll see that function executes and returns true, that this string is indeed purple, and then continues executing. But what if we wanted to see what was going on inside is purple? We'd have to use another button up here called step into. So if we were to continue to the end of the code, run it again, and move this console back over, you see also that I can remove breakpoints while we're debugging. I'm going to continue to line 31 where we go into the isPurple function. So I'm going to give it a number and a color, and now we're at line 31. At line 31, we call isPurple. And again, if I were to just hit next line, we would skip right past. But instead, I'm going to hit step into. And as you can see, this little yellow triangle has shown us that we are now at line 39 inside the function. At line 39, we are assessing whether or not str is equal to the string purple. Seeing as it is not, when I hit next line, we should be going right into the else block, which returns false. Hitting next line again brings us out of this function to the end, onto the else condition because we returned false, and as you can see, we are done with our code execution. If this was a little confusing to you, don't worry, we haven't gone over functions quite yet. However, once you start working with functions, being able to step into them and step out by using the button next to it will be invaluable tools in navigating your code. The last thing I want to show you is how to stop using the debugger. To stop debugging, you simply hit this red Stop Debugger button. The rest of the debugger functions are all in this section, and you can play around with them to see what they each do. Well, this concludes our tutorial. I hope you found it helpful, and I hope it helps you discover problems in your code, as well as give you the tools to help solve them on your own. That being said, if you have any troubles with the debugger, or any code questions in general, please reach out to me on Discord, and I can get to you as soon as I can. Thanks for your time, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.